These are the pawns. They like the soldiers. They move like this, one space forward only.
All right, but if I make it to the end, I'm top dog.
The Wire is a fascinating examination of how a city plagued by drugs and crime can perpetuate the same destructive cycle again and again, despite how many of the participants view themselves as an exception to the rule. The promises of the game initially seem pretty clear. By following orders, attacking opposition, stacking cash, and building a reputation, you can pull yourself and your family out of poverty and have a much-needed shot at the American dream. That's what your mentors have taught you, and that's what got them where they are now.
And without the game, this whole family would be down in the f***ing terrace living off scraps.
These are the lessons in how to survive and thrive, handed down from one generation to the next. But one of the key themes of the game is its high-risk nature, and something all new gamblers eventually learn is that the house always wins. But what are the chances you can simply choose not to play? And if you do play, what are the odds you actually end up winning? Let's examine the life cycle of the game, as shown in The Wire, to find out.
Nah?
Nah.
You don't choose where you're born, you don't choose the circumstances you're born into, you don't choose your parents or their attitudes about the world or the messages they impart. As you get older, you develop more agency, you're exposed to more ideas and options, and therefore you can make more informed decisions. But as a child, you're at the mercy of your influences. What you're taught first is all you know, until you discover something else. And for the children in West Baltimore, the world they inhabit is a world where you need to learn lessons fast in order to survive. Any day of the week, you might wake up to the sight of a dead body outside your window. That will teach you pretty quick that you shouldn't talk to the police. Everyone older than you is either selling drugs, addicted to drugs, in prison, or dead. The only people that possibly could put a stop to all of this are the government, but they don't really have any solutions to offer except cracking down on crime, which means more police. And cops are viewed by everyone you know as the enemy, as they're a threat to this way of life. And this way of life is the only way you know to possibly get out of poverty. And if they're not tricking you into snitching, which you know could put you in danger, they're not always following the rules either. They rough up your friends and the corner boys, and some of them even steal your cash for themselves, and physically harm you. If these were your first experiences with a cop, then it's a natural instinct to feel adversarial to them. They claim they're trying to make things better while making things worse, and they arrest you for breaking the rules, while they hypocritically seem happy to break them themselves. The people you do look up to are the same people your friends look up to, the kingpin of the city, or the rogue thief who seems to outsmart everyone else. Why? Because they're the winners, and if you're not aiming for the top, then you're more than likely going to end up at the bottom. And even though you're scared and just want to feel safe, you see what happens to the weakest people in the neighborhood, so the only logical choice is to act tough in the hopes you'll become tough. You stick close to your friends and stay loyal to them, even if it's just through petty rivalries with other local gangs, because this is what will toughen you up and prepare you for the bigger battles to come, when balloons are inevitably replaced with bullets. Sure, it would be nice to have some future plans of your own, but ever since you were born, it was seen as your fate to become a corner boy, just like your father. Who, yes, might be in jail, but at least you know he survived, and made the money that to this day still puts food on your table. So if your own flesh and blood thrived at this, then you're seeing the positive results this game can bring, and if he's your father, you must be destined for that same greatness. When you go to school, the teachers don't seem like bad people, and they're fun to play around with. But everything they want to teach you isn't applicable for the world you know, and if it won't help you survive, then it's of no value to you. There's even outside pressure to start working the corners during school time, not just from the other soldiers, but from your own mother. Everyone is telling you it's time for you to step up and be a man, and if you don't, then you're a higher risk of becoming a snitch, or at least showing some snitch potential, as realistically, what else are you gonna do? Everyone around you mocks the idea of becoming anything else. You're either tough enough to be in the game, or you're not. So you start working the corner, and just like anything, what you focus on grows in importance in your mind. This isn't just a job, it's a part of your identity, it's your career, your sole potential. So you put everything into it, just like any other aspiration you might have. And as you're learning about how real business works, it's simultaneously all working out for you, as long as you follow the rules.
No loose talk, no second thoughts, and no snitching.
But now that you're in the game, the police are showing more interest in you, but naturally you don't trust them because of how they treated you when you were younger. So just like the teachers at school were fun to mess with, you play around with the cops and waste their time the way teachers tried to waste yours. But then you find out one of your friends, the people you've grown up with your whole life, has been snitching to the police. Here you are working your ass off and learning from your mentors, and they're jeopardizing everything. Suddenly you have a complete understanding of why snitches need to be dealt with harshly, because you're now at risk of going to jail too. The boss swings by and hand selects you, questions if you have what it takes to become a real soldier, and now what choice do you have? Let down everyone around you and throw away everything you've been building for yourself for someone who betrayed you, or finally step up and prove you're the exception to the rule. It's not easy, but this has been normalized to you since day one. This is how you succeed, and this is what happens if you snitch. You didn't snitch, he did, so you do it. Now you're promoted, and the bosses are even listening to your ideas sometimes. You're successfully protecting your corner with more responsibilities. Every now and then a new body turns up, but it's not you, so it's all worth it. But then something happens, and the boss is thrown in jail, along with some of his loyal servants, including you. Whatever it is you were building no longer matters. You're taken out of the game, stripped of everything you know, and given time out. Back on the streets, there's now a power vacuum, and no one ever stood out by playing the same game as everyone else, so the new king in town will have to distinguish himself by breaking the rules. The old guard will fall as the new guard rises up, wiping out those you were raised to believe could never be got. This makes him seem more dangerous, because under the old rules you got respect, you thrived and survived, ignoring everyone else who didn't. Meanwhile, those in prison have time to reflect, having to deal with the reality that their life is over before it even started. They had choices, but they never felt like options. They were always being pushed by parents, or threatened by soldiers, or tempted by money. This lifestyle was handed down to them from generation to generation, and they wonder if maybe they could have played it differently, or not played at all. But prison isn't safe either. If you don't play by the rules, you might get taken out. Some die, some stay, some get released. And once you're back on the streets, after all those years away, to you, it now feels as if the game has changed. You worked so hard to earn your respect because that's what kept you safe, but all these new faces don't know who you are or what you sacrificed. There's a new king in town, and you're just a nobody. You may even convince yourself that there used to be honor in this game when it was working for you, but now seeing all those mentors that trained you in getting knocked out one by one just feels cold. You're so isolated that it doesn't feel like there's any way to get to the top, because you don't have a crew to climb up with. Now you start seeing how brutal and harsh the game is. You wonder if maybe the teachers were right to try to teach you something else, and maybe the cops weren't all that wrong to try to break it apart.
This game is rigged, man. We like them little bitches on the chessboard.
Pawns.
And if you're stuck at the bottom, why protect those at the top? It was too late for others, but maybe it's not too late for you. Except once you're even spotted talking to the cops, you're now the snitch. And the next group of upcoming soldiers trying to prove their loyalty will take you out, just like you took out your own friend. Or instead, maybe you decide to start over with nothing. Maybe you get a job in a shoe store or working as a gardener, and you figure you should try to provide a new avenue for the next generation to escape the same fate as you. And as it grows, you witness the cycle in action, as each boy gets siphoned down their respective roads. The ones that had to grow up fast and became tough enough to survive on their own get sucked up by the game, now rolling the dice to find out if they'll wind up in jail or dead. And the ones that aren't strong enough to play are at the mercy of whatever the rest of the world has to offer. Some might get lucky, be born with more money, and find the right mentor to help save them. And others are less lucky, born without anything, not strong enough to sell drugs, but weak enough to use them. And even if they do find a good mentor, they're not quite the right one to fully save them. Just like you didn't choose the circumstance you were born into, you don't get to choose who will take a shine to you. It's all just chance. Even life outside the game is pure luck. You're born into this world with no idea who you'll become, but as each choice gets made by you or for you, it begins to become clearer and clearer who you're being molded into. Another generation ready to play their part in this never-ending cycle. And even for the bosses up the top, although they share a mutual understanding of one another's mindsets, they can also end up with vastly different outcomes. They could be locked up with no chance of parole, or they could get the chance to trade their most loyal soldiers to a life behind bars so that they can be set free, and then sell their contacts to the next group of leaders who want to shoot their shot and experience their own American dream. But as always, in a power vacuum, the rules are still getting figured out, and even though you, like everyone else, think you're an exception to the rule because you made it this far, you should be careful not to overplay your hand.
It's our time, mine's and yours. There's just the street and the game and what happened here today.
The dream is dead before it even begins. No sentimentality, no nostalgia, no legacy. You're just another body on the ground, waiting to get cleared away like trash. You clear the board, and the game begins all over again. New leaders, new soldiers, new rules, new corner boys, new teachers, new students. But the same outcomes every time. Rinse and repeat. You might get lucky, you might get caught, or you might get killed. But you don't get to choose which one you get. It's out of your control. All you can do is roll the dice and find out.
The game's a game.
Always.
If you enjoy content like this and want to see more of it, please do consider supporting me on Patreon, as it really does make a difference to how much content I can pump out. Or if you can't afford that, then simply like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment down below to help the algorithm do its thing.